I'm not saying Jujutsu Kaisen is already manga of the year. But at the exact same time, I'm not really not saying that. Thank you to our final patrons, Strawbones, 14765, Midnight Gemlord, and Sean. Now, before this breakdown / discussion and review of chapter 212 of Jujutsu Kaisen, really, peak Kaisen, please remember to leave your own notes on the chapter in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, you hit that little notification bell to miss out on any videos that come on the channel. Also, I do a Patreon down below. You can support Fizzle as one, count 'em one, down month, getting exclusive videos, early content, and more. Also, now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks include the live reaction to this very chapter. Now, let's hop into the review. What's up, guys? I'm the Pencil here, and here we are to review chapter 212 of Peak Kaisen. Peak Kaisen? Peak Kaisen. I have literally no idea how to alter it. It's just peak. It's perfection. I literally... Okay, Gege. I do believe, admittedly, you are zooming. You are zooming at supernatural velocities. Like, insane velocities. But, man... Chefing it up is an understatement. He isn't just cooking it up. He's the head chef. Legitimately, I let Tabata cook, and he's been cooking pretty darn well. I've been trying to let Hori cook. I don't know. I haven't been liking the meals recently. But Gege? Cooking is... Let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into the chapter itself. So we open up, and we do get to see that we are back with Tsumiki. Admittedly in a flashback, which is very interesting because this doesn't have the traditional flashback panels. Like, usually the paneling is black whenever you do flashbacks. Because this clearly is a flashback, because Tsumiki's still in a wheelchair and stuff like that. However, she has awoken from her coma, and we do get to see she's like, Megumi. And Megumi's sitting there, and being Megumi Fushiguro, you know, the calmest, coolest kid to ever calm, cool kid, he's like, hey, you know, what's up? How'd you sleep? Only Megumi, right? Like, I don't know. I could never imagine myself being in Megumi's situation, but I do think I would be a bit more, like, hyped up, a bit more geeked to see the one person who's left from my former life as a non-jujutsu sorcerer being alive and awake and mobile and able to speak. I don't know, especially after she just randomly went to a coma with a weird mark on her head. Me personally, I'd be a bit more excited. However, with that being the case, we see that Tsumiki's wondering how many years it's been. And she specifically says, how many years has it been? It doesn't feel like time has passed for me. Which, like, obviously, I kind of do wish we got this in the last chapter before it was revealed that Tsumiki was not Tsumiki. Because, like, I mean, I get it. This works well because I don't even need the previous context. I know this is like a double entendre. She's asking how many years it's been, not because she thinks she's been asleep for years, but no. The reason she says and asks how many years it's been, it doesn't feel like time has passed for me at all, is because this is a reincarnated sorcerer from 1,000 years ago. So they're wondering, well, what's the modern time period? Like, when did Kenjaku finally make these culling games of his? And honestly, despite, you know, not being alive for the past 1,000 years, it doesn't feel like I've been not alive for the past 1,000 years or any real time at all, which is good. I do like the double entendre, but once again, even the opening text of the chapter, suddenly Tsumiki adds a rule. Who is she really? What's her goal? That kind of like, I don't know. I think it would have been better beforehand. I'm not a fan, and as much as I love Gege, I don't like retroactively doing flashbacks. I think if you need to do that, you should have built it up beforehand. Me personally, but I'm not gonna lie, it's not like Gege has bad build-up. Obviously, the build-up to the big final event of this chapter is buku bonkers, to put it lightly. And with that, I'm not gonna get too mad at Gege, but I'm gonna waggle my finger a little bit and be like, hey there, buddy, pal, make sure you do your work right. And this is a little bit, I'm not sure how I feel about it. However, regardless of that, we do get to see that Megumi, despite his nonchalant nature, has been keeping perfect count. He's like a year and 7 months, roughly. And we see that Tsumiki's like, okay, really? No wonder walking feels so hard. Realistically, walking feels so hard because you haven't done it in 1,000 years. You sneaky boy or girl. I'm not sure what this sorcerer is. I wonder if we'll ever know. Because I realistically thought that all the incarnated sorcerers like morphed, like straight up overrode their previous body. Like, you know how Toji and no, that's not Toji himself, but when Toji got resurrected through that seance technique from the granny in Shibuya, Like, his body just straight, and then he turned into Toji. Sure, Toji overwhelmed him because the soul data overrode the body, or no, the body data overrode the soul of the kid. But even with that being the case, it's interesting that she managed to maintain this form. I wonder if it's a choice, because I'm assuming Kashimo, just based on the fact that we saw his old flashback, looks like Kashimo when he was in his prime. And same thing with someone like Ryu. Ryu, at least based on the appearance we saw of him, the only thing that changed is that he went from a little tuft of hair for his little pea shooter to a pompadour so he could get that full cannon action. So I wonder, did Kenjaku specifically choose people who just happen to look like the deceased sorcerers? Did he just choose that, and that's why they all look so similar to their previous selves? Or is it just like, you can choose to override the body data if you want, but the sorcerer here doesn't do it just yet because they want the 100 points and all the perks of being Tsumiki? And we don't necessarily get an answer to that just yet. We get an answer to something I have been wondering about for a while in this chapter, but not that. I mean, we do get to see that Megumi's like, hey, did you hear about the Culling games? Like, do you know the whole situation right now? And we see that she ends up saying, well, yeah, and I heard about Gojo-san too. Even though I always knew you two had a hard job, I didn't think it would ever... Seriously, don't worry about it. My friends and I will handle it. Somehow. Anyway, Tsumiki, you might as well sleep some more. You haven't changed. Stubborn as always. And it's interesting. I like it a lot. I do like this. Once again, I do wish it was a little bit beforehand, because then we could have been like, yo, why Tsumiki like acting out right now? Like, what the heck? Like, at least this whole like critiquing Megumi in this way doesn't seem entirely like Tsumiki, though barely any characterization we had of her from before. But even Megumi doesn't seem to notice something's wrong at all, which is very interesting. And I'm very shocked that, well, wait, I need to double check, but I think they actually transferred the points before she got into the barrier. But if they transfer it after, I'm shocked Megumi, he didn't notice something was up, nothing was off, especially with how she just walked in. However, we do get to see that Itadori back in the present is not like, okay, finally, my journey's finally about to be at its end. Just a bit more, and this is done, and Fushiguro will be okay. After this, Angel will erase Sukuna along with me. Gojo-sensei will be released from the back of the prison realm, and then everything will be just fine. I do like how we are definitely hinting that Gojo is going to be popping out pretty darn soon, because Gege, for the past couple chapters really, has kept throwing in drawings of Gojo and stuff like that, and all in different fashions, different points of his life. We had young Gojo in the last chapter, we have fully adult Gojo in this chapter, we had teenage Gojo, who was a single father, in the chapter before that. Obviously, I do believe Gojo's going to be getting out soon, and I think they are going to need him, even though I think the end of this chapter is going to lead to probably my favorite fight in all of Jujutsu Kaisen, but we'll get into that in a little bit. However, we do get to see that Itadori's like, maybe, honestly, it should have just been like this from the start. If I just vanished after saving Fushiguro back then and lived out the rest of my days in peace, I suppose. With one finger of Sukuna, he could never resurrect to his full power, and I would never done all the damage that I ended up doing. Whatever. It's too late to think on that now. And I do like how Itadori, once again, his guilt really is something that's ever present with him. It's never something that's going to be slid under the rug. It's never going to be something that's going to be ignored because, we need to have plot stuff going on. It is Itadori's character to feel guilty. It is Itadori's character to feel the pain and suffering he's caused others, even to his own detriment. And I think that's very, very solid. It's very nice to see. I appreciate it a lot just because of how you rarely see it in other characters. I believe Asta's doing it very well too, though admittedly I think his sadness arc was a little bit short both times that it happened so far, but even still, I do appreciate any work done like this for characters, because it's very rare. It's very hard to do. You never necessarily want your main character to either be down in the dumps or sad or contemplative because they're the main character, right? Like they're what you're gonna show most of the time. So I get why Gege doesn't normally show Itadori that much, because it kind of just bogs down the narrative a little bit. But I think the extra weight Itadori adds to the narrative through his retrospective, through his contemplation, through his understanding of himself and what he means as a vessel of Sukuna that may not last a little bit longer, I think it's really, really nice. I think it really adds depth and really dimension to Itadori's character. A character who, once again, right at the beginning, you never would have seen me praising this much. But still, even with characters like Kisagi Yoichi, even with characters like Asta, even with characters like Percival, I think Itadori still is my favorite new gen MC by a long shot. Like I think it's not necessarily close to the competition. The only character who really comes close as an MC for me is like Isagi Yoichi, also because he has extreme levels of development, but I think Itadori and what he does more in this series is more interesting to me generally than Blue Lock. But that's a comparison video I'm already scripting right now. I'm trying to see where I line the two up relatively, not just their characters, but also their verses and what I feel about my general interest in both of them. However, we do get to see that, everything may not be as it seems, because as he mentally thanks Gojo and Megumi for allowing him to have a role to play in this grand cursed narrative of theirs, it all goes bad, because we see that Tsumiki, or not Tsumiki, says, "Add a rule. Please allow free entry and exit from the colonies." And we see that Itadori's like, what? Though something's, never mind, I get it though. The thing is, we see Itadori just going like, wait, that is not the rule we told you to add. Higuruma gave me those 100 points. Never mind, he didn't really. He sacrificed them for not this. What are you doing? And we see that the Kogane is like, oh, sure. I couldn't care less. I'll fight you on the thing you tried to do last chapter, but this chapter, this is light. Of course, Rule 12, players may freely enter and exit the colonies. And we see the Tsumiki, who is not Tsumiki, is like, oh, after all, we shouldn't be limited to our own battlefields, yes? We should be able to choose them if we wish. And we see that now Megumi finally notices, he's like, you, who are you? And we see, and a very interesting choice, I love the way the translators use this text. Who do you think? I'm your big sister! Yo, Gege, once again, you'll never hear me put Gege up. Like, in terms of kinetics and, like, how well and how fluid their art is, Gege is definitely, like, top 2, top 3 for me. Like, legitimately, I think their only competition is Sakamoto Days. And, like, Gotomoto Days is really hard to beat. Like, don't get me wrong. Just the art quality and the fluidity of Gotomoto Days is just bonkers. So, don't take this as an insult to JJK. And definitely, I will, as much as I do agree that the JJK art style works very, very well, and it is still very, very good. You try to draw JJK. It's more difficult than you think. I will still agree, yes, there are multiple mangaka that art quality-wise better. I'd say Nakaba Suzuki's better. I'd say Suzuki from Sakamoto Days is better. I'd say Horikoshi is better. I'd say Tabata is better. Trust me, I definitely have I definitely have mangaka above Gege in terms of art quality. Art fluidity, not necessarily, but art quality. And with that being the case, I still love Gege's art style, because just the way he chose to draw Natsuki here is it's so wrong, right? Like, legitimately, it is so wrong. And I think this is a trait that I've only seen, like, consistently done with Nakaba Suzuki in the 4 Nights and 7 Deadly Sins series. Both Gege and Suzuki are unafraid to absolutely mangle their character designs. And, like, notably in animation, I do not like when characters go off model unless it's for squash and stretch, when in that case it's fine, because, one of the basic principles of animation. But sometimes characters just look weird. Like, they're standing around and they look weird. They look off model. But what Gege and Nakaba are able to do is that they're able to use the ability to go off model, go so far away from how the characters are supposed to look, and draw them with weird proportions, draw them with over-exaggerated features, and add to the terror, the fear, the confusion, the ugliness, everything behind a certain scenario. And I think it works really, really well. I do agree that I do think that Nakaba does it better, but that's simply because their art quality is higher. That's not something that Gege can really overcome naturally. Nakaba is just a really good artist, especially now. But even still, Gege is definitely up there in terms of that creep factor. I love the way he drew Tsumiki in this panel. Honestly, it would be the thumbnail if the other obvious thing wasn't the thumbnail. I think you and I both, it's probably the thumbnail to, like, the live reaction, which you can check out on Patreon for as low as $1 a month, or become a member for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. But regardless, the thing is, we do get to see that with that being the case, Fushiguro Megumi is now broken. Like, legitimately, he's lost everything. His one and only sister that he had from that previous life is now gone. Like, legitimately, Angel already explained that even if they could use their technique on someone like Sukuna or any incarnated sorcerer at all, they're most likely going to cease the living. It's just how that's going to happen. And thusly, he in this moment realized that there's no way to save his sister. His mom's already gone. He never even knew and can't even remember the look of his dad, who he just fought a couple days ago unconsciously. And now he's gonna have to sacrifice his best friend and get rid of Sukuna. The only person he may have left is Gojo, and that's even if they can properly get Gojo out at this point. Everything that can go wrong did go wrong for Megumi, and I think that's wonderful. I don't know, I definitely like, maybe why I'm such a big fan of Chainsaw Man. I'm a big fan of JJK. I'm a big fan of, heck, even Four Knights and Seven League Sins at times. I like it when characters suffer. I don't know. I'm not a fan of suffering myself. Like, please don't make me suffer. But, like, legitimately reading it, seeing them struggle and go through things like this, beautiful. I love it. I think it's great. But that's just me, though. That's just me. However, we do get to see that the reason Tsumiki was able to, or not Tsumiki, was able to play Megumi so well is because an incarnated player receives information about modern era from the vessel's brain, which is something I was wondering, because you can go back in all the earlier reviews. I was always asking, how do you know that? Where did you get that from? Like, the biggest example I remember is Kashimo somehow knowing about a very specific modern zoo. Like, how do you know that? Kashimo somehow not reacting to the concept of manga. How do you know that? Ryu Ishigori somehow knowing about seemingly modern bakeries. How do you know that? Like, legitimately, there were just weird moments where I'm like, where'd you get that data from? Where's the information coming from? And we do get to see that the incarnated sorcerers do have access to the modern era from the vessel's brain. And that's why Choso, Sukuna, the incarnated players are all able to function just fine in the modern era. So essentially, they could just play the long game, no matter what. Even if they weren't going to join the Culling games for some reason or another, even though I think they're all naturally conscripted to, they could just blend in. Like, hypothetically, right now, if Kenjaku wasn't doing the merger and waiting for the colonies to get the rest of the cursed energy required, all he would need to do, or all any player would do, is like run into a barrier, because you know the rules added. Run into a barrier, get their points up, leave, live a regular life for like 18 days, go back in, get a few more points, and leave, and do the same thing. Just repeat over and over and over again. I think that'd be nice. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see. And it's interesting how this has sort of been like subtly built up. Like I said, through Kashimo, through Ryu. It's been implied and established that people do have access to the memories of the modern day. And thusly, they can essentially use that as a roadmap to survive. And I think that's so interesting. And we get to see that with that being the case, reading the memories of the vessel that they have and impersonating them is a very easy thing to do. It's not even improbable. And we see that apparently Megumi is hurt, broken, and shattered by the fact that he didn't even consider it. He's like, why did I assume that Tsumiki was an awakened player? Why did I assume that she would just get a curse technique and not become a reincarnated sorcerer? And it is so, I love I think this is the most, like, broken we've ever seen Megumi. Because once again, you gotta realize, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. There's nothing going on. Nothing at all that is going right for him. And we see that Tsumiki, now, not Tsumiki, is like, oh, well, just kidding, you know I'm not. Obviously, I just added a rule, I'm gonna go slaughter a whole bunch of people. No worries. And we see that Hana and Itadori are like, whoa, Fushiguro, what's poppin'? What's Gucci? What's geeking? Like, is something wrong? What's happening? Why is she doing the not thing? And we see that they're calling for his name as he's staring and sweating. And the Natsumuki reveals that their name is Yorozu. And hold on, I must Google that. I have indeed done the Googling. And I don't know. They don't. All I got was like a car company. That's all I found on Google, Yorozu. So I have no idea who this person is. But apparently, according to them, the old guys may still remember her. Now, I'm not sure if this is a her. Maybe Kenjaku's like, hey, I was a mom, you can be a mom. But in reality, I wonder what she means by the old guys. Does she mean the elders of Jujutsu High? I highly doubt that. But she could mean the old sorcerers. Though, ironically enough, unless I think the only sorcerer we know that would be old enough to remember Yorozu would be Uro. ironically enough, because Ryu is from around 400 years ago, because Kashima was from around 400 years ago. They are not from the peak age of sorcerers, they're just two strong sorcerers who appeared in that time period. And then we don't have any other context or ages for ancient sorcerers. Like, Daru was an ancient sorcerer, but he wasn't even from Japan, he was in Africa. And, let me think, who else? I think that's it out of all the sorcerers we met, because Higuruma isn't incarnated. Oh, Reggie may be incarnated, but I forget from how far away he is, but I don't even think he's from 1,000. The only reason I think Oru may be from 1,000 years ago, despite not being, I don't think, directly confirmed, is because she recognizes and remembers Sukuna, meaning she may have been around in that time period. So maybe they can get information about Yorozu from Uro. Maybe she's one of the people who helped fight Sukuna, because mainly the thing we see is that one, Megumi's still freaking and not geeking. He's like, why? This whole time? And we see that Yorozu's like, weren't you the ones who told me about it? The Culling game, and your plan to withdraw from it. If I'm offered 100 points for free, of course I'll take them. My first battle in 1,000 years. I want to choose the place and the opponent. And of course, the first battle ought to be Sukuna. And Interesting. So, the thing is, from 1,000 years ago, we know that sorcerers struggled to take down Sukuna, or at least that's the history that we have. These sorcerers, even when they all came together, couldn't even really properly get rid of him. They just could seal him away and wax fingers and stuff like that. But, even with that being the case, this sorcerer, Yorozu, seems confident in taking him on. Interesting. Very, very interesting. I wonder how powerful they really are. They spawn insect wings, or at least like bootleg butterfly wings from their back after removing the satchel on their back. And I guess they have an insect-based curse technique or something of the sort. Interesting. Notably, they just fly right off. Though ironically enough, if they had stayed there for like 5 more minutes, Sukuna would have been right there. I don't know. Unless she literally baited them to follow her and then just doubled back once she sensed Sukuna. Because reasonably, Sukuna should release a massive presence of curse energy once he manifests. And thusly, I could definitely see him manifesting. And then Yorozu being like, wait a minute. Never mind. I smell you. And then Sukuna gets jumped. But before I get into the whole jumping thing, we'll get into that in a little bit. However, we do get to see that Yorozu flies off, and she's like, toodaloo, I'll be waiting, okay? And I assume that she I think she does just plan to double back, even though she flies off pretty far and pretty rapidly, pretty quickly. And we see that Angel and Itadori go to chase her down, and are like, yo, wait, we cannot let this woman dip. However, we do get to see that, finally, when was it established? It was like the second arc, or the third arc of JJK. The Enchain. Yo, honestly, this plot point is something that I was wondering if Gege just forgot about, because it seemed like there are multiple moments that Sukuna could have done this, but now it seems like finally the time is here. Finally the time has arrived, because right out of his cheek, right out of his mouth, we hear the words Enchain. And Yuji, remembering all the way back to the binding vow made when he first perished, is dragged back into the domain. And we see that Sukuna says, there are 2 conditions. First, when I chant Enchain, you will lend me your body for 1 minute. And second, you will forget about this contract. And with this, I think Sukuna breaks the binding vow immediately. Like, I don't know how what he does to Hana here does not count as harming a person. Like, legitimately? Really? He literally strangles her. Like, at least, unless, like, does that not count as harm? What does harm mean in this scenario? Is it breaking bones? Is it like something like that? Because legitimately, he presses his fingers seemingly on the back of her head and the front of her neck, immediately knocking her out and dropping her just like that. I don't know how that doesn't count as hurting, and whatever binding vow rules that he underwent should have like activated immediately. I don't know. I do think that's a little bit cheesy, or not cheesy, but a bit wrong. I think Sukuna should have just let her run off a bit more, and then like have her chasing, and then take advantage of Megumi while she's not looking. Because this definitely seems like a bit of a plot. I'm not sure if I could count it as a plot hole, but it very specifically seems strange that he doesn't immediately get whatever the repercussions are for breaking a binding vow. Something that admittedly we haven't seen yet. I hope we see that before the end of the series. We've never seen what happens if you go against a binding vow. We're not sure if it's like the River Styx thing from the Percy Jackson series, where something just extremely bad happens to you and like you get cursed for the rest of your life, and or something like that. They're powerful enough that Sukuna himself respects them, so I'm assuming the backlash must be massive. But he took a risk here, and it worked out, and I don't think it should have. The way he grips her neck, I think that should count as harming. I get that he catches her immediately after she passes out, so she doesn't hit the ground, but even still, seems a little bit wonky. And the next part seems a little bit wonky, too, because we see that Sukuna's like, if it's a binding vow, it's the binding vow I made with that brat. I can't hurt or slaughter anyone within a minute. Yeah, that's the thing. I think that counts as hurting people, right? Like, maybe any of my martial arts experts down below, I do actually have a couple of y'all in the comment section, which I greatly appreciate your expertise. And I like when you guys show up and speak. So question, or anyone who's like trained physically, does knocking someone out count as hurting them? Because I think it would. I like, at least I would think it would. I think that would count as hurting, and thus that makes that kind of a plot hole that he doesn't get immediately affected by by breaking the binding vow, which is what he did. At least to me, that's what it seems like. And we do get to see that Megumi's like, Sukuna, why? Though admittedly, if I was Megumi, Mahoriga's coming out immediately. I'm dropping him. I'm dropping Mahoraga so fast. Like, legitimately, the moment I see him grab Hana, it's like, no, with this treasure I summon, like, immediately, I'm dropping anything and everything to survive. Because obviously Itadori wouldn't do that, so it's not worth asking why. Especially once he starts talking, with this treasure I summon. And we do get to see that Sukuna is now going to take another hypothetically binding vow breaking gamble. He says, of course, what's next is a gamble. And he infuses his pinky finger with seemingly extreme amounts of cursed energy before immediately tearing it off. And Megumi, once again, refuses to immediately summon the treasure. Like, dude, work fast. Like, though admittedly I understand it, Megumi is in shock. Like, he's wondering, like, what's going on here. Obviously, he's very confused. He's not in his, like, peak analytical state right now. But still, Megumi, you may have at least been able to stall him for everyone else to show up before you, like, did something. Like, do something with Mahoraga. Especially if Mahoraga keeps the adaptations that it has from its previous battles, then I think it probably wouldn't beat Sukuna, because I'm assuming Sukuna has other techniques that it could use to one-shot Mahoraga. But still, I don't think Domain would work. And he obviously doesn't want to get rid of you, so he wouldn't use Domain on you. I don't think... And the thing is, he's limited. He's so limited right now that I think summoning Mahoraga, if that happened here, would have actually won Megumi the day. Because the Enchain would lose. Like, he would not be able to harm or hurt anybody within 10 minutes. Or no, in 1 minute. And then that's all it takes. And then suddenly it's a GG. However, we do get to see, with this pinky being ripped off, Sukuna starts laughing like crazy. Incredible! What a thoroughly foolish brat. A binding vow not to hurt anyone, but he didn't even include himself. Which also doesn't make sense. I also think this is kind of nonsense. Like, trust me, I still am saying this is like the best manga chapter I've read in a while, like, period, point blank. But even still, I do think these are two, like, just breaking of the rule. I think Gege didn't think that through. Like, legitimately, once again, if I'm missing something, I'm fully ready and willing to have missed something here. So let me know in the comment section. But I think, considering it's Sukuna himself who came up with the binding vow, it shouldn't be Itadori's perspective that matters. It should be Sukuna's, and tearing off your own finger is definitely counting as hurting somebody. So he should definitely be getting it afflicted by the binding vow, because once again, it was Sukuna who made the rules, and Itadori forgot about it. So Itadori's perspective should not matter at all. I don't know. Seems like that, at least that's how I would interpret it. If I was like the binding vow enforcer, like give me the ability to enforce binding vows, Sukuna would be hit twice, because he broke it twice. He hurt Hana by knocking her out, and he hurt himself by tearing off his own finger. Or he hurt Itadori, whichever you want to say. He's literally bleeding right now. So honestly, he should be done. So I think those are the two major issues I have with this chapter. The fact that Sukuna breaks the binding vow twice and there are no direct consequences. If I am missing something here, if there's something I need to go reread, please let me know down below. I don't know. I'm kind of not all for this scenario, just because I feel like it could have been done better. I feel like you could avoid these things. Like, legitimately, yeah, I feel like you could avoid it. Like, instead of, hypothetically, if you wanted to get the same effect of this without incurring the breaking of the binding vow, all you need to have happen is have Sukuna chant and chain, let Hana chase after the fake Tsumiki Yorozu, have her get out of sight, and then immediately turn around and then shove your finger in Megumi's mouth and then force him to chomp it off himself. because then he's not breaking the binding vow. Sukuna's not hurting anyone, because Megumi pushing someone's jaw up is rough, but it shouldn't hurt them. At least I don't think that counts as hurt. I think that's much less hurt than snapping someone's neck and or knocking them out by gripping the back of their neck. But at the same time, if the finger gets chomped off by Megumi and he's forced to swallow it, as he is later on in this very chapter, I think the binding vow wouldn't work. Or wouldn't be incurred. I would have no issues. I think Gege, in an attempt to make it look cooler, actually kind of just broke the rules. And now finally Megumi goes to summon Mahoraga, but he had like a whole couple seconds before to do that. And obviously Sukuna, after running the ones with that thing, doesn't want to run the ones with it again, even if he body bagged it. So Megumi absolutely gets manhandled, and his hand signs are completely undone, and thusly he's unable to summon Mahoraga. And then Sukuna grabs him by the cheeks, and sounds so wrong, but he grabs his face and shoves the finger in his mouth, and Megumi naturally is forced to swallow. It's just a natural reflex we humans have. And thusly, we see this beautiful panel that actually may be the thumbnail for the live reaction. And we see that Sukuna questions, "Don't you remember? We'll be able to see something interesting. Didn't I say that?" And notably, we see that Itadori is the one holding on to Megumi now. And Megumi is covered in specific markings. He's like, "We'll be able to see something interesting. I messed it up. We'll be able to see something interesting. Didn't I say that? Brat." And now Megumi incarnates as Sukuna. And bada bing, bada boom, Itadori is now free of Sukuna. At least seemingly entirely. Like, notably, even the closed eye markings on Itadori are now gone, meaning he has lost all cursed energy. Or at least he should have. Like, unless remnants of Sukuna's cursed energy remain in Itadori, and he's now sort of in like a one-for-all thing where he's just going to be running on the embers of Sukuna's curse technique or cursed energy, then Itadori is now essentially just a weaker heavenly restriction user. He's back to how he was in the battle with Higuruma, and that's obviously not going to go against Meguna, the fusion of Megumi and Sukuna. So that's where the chapter ends. And overall, even with my two major complaints, even with my feeling that Gege, in an effort to make it look cooler, broke the rules of the binding vow that he set up, I still really, really like this chapter. Overall, getting introduced to another ancient sorcerer that seems to be very, very powerful and confident, I like that. Yorozu, very, very good. I still like the plot twist from the last chapter too. That's great. Another thing I do like, I still like Sukuna incarnating through Megumi. You can definitely go back, obviously, ever since the leaks dropped, you've seen it everywhere online. I couldn't ignore it even before the live reaction. Yeah, I saw this, and obviously, it's really, really cool. I like it, and due to the leaks coming out so early, and everyone theorizing and speculating, everyone looked back for the foreshadowing. Megumi and Sukuna technically take the same poses a lot of the time. They're paralleled a lot in their respective places, like Megumi is shown fighting against Gojo. Why would the two fight? They were implied to fight by Gojo himself, with a 10 Shadows user taking down a Limitless user in the past. Bada bing, bada boom. Obviously, that's that. And top that off with things like the fact that Megumi sat on a throne of bodies, just like Sukuna sat on a throne of bodies. The fact that all the way back in chapter 1, the first drawing we ever see in the series, Megumi's toe Shikigami has the markings of Sukuna. Like, obviously, Sukuna's shown a major interest in Megumi, has been protecting him this entire time. I've seen a lot of people saying that, oh, this is horrible, it ruins the series, it wasn't built up at all. You're just blind. Like, that sounds rude, and I don't want to say it like that. That's too rude. I don't want to say you're blind, but you're kind of just blatantly ignoring the massive amounts of foreshadowing. Even not the just imagery foreshadowing and subtle foreshadowing of like Megumi on the throne of bodies as Sukuna was, Megumi having a burialist domain and like Sukuna does. Obviously the frog markings in chapter 1, like Sukuna, like Megumi, but they're like obvious things in the narrative that even say that this was going to happen eventually. Like Megumi literally getting healed up and protected by Sukuna against the rogue Shikigami Mahoraga. Him saying he has plans for him. Him not explicitly just executing him. Obviously this was going to happen. How it happened, I do think it could have been done better just to avoid the binding vow breakings, but that's irrelevant. However, with that being the case, still my favorite chapter, like pretty much all year. And I know the year's only like a month in, but still, it's my favorite chapter I've read in a while. The only chapter that I think like comes close to this in terms of like sweet mother of mercy, this is gorgeous and beautiful and I love it, is the Four Nights chapter when Blank appears. I don't want to spoil that for the people who want to read Fortnite See the Apocalypse. But any of my Fortnite See the Apocalypse reader who also watch my JJK reviews, you know the exact chapter I'm talking about. Something about a stairway from the heavens. Y'all know which one it was. That is the only chapter that I'd say is better than this because nothing gets contradicted. Like, I will take a point off from this chapter. It is a not, you know what? It is still a 10 out of 10. Because it was going to be an 11 out of 10 if it wasn't for, you know what? It was going to be a 12 out of 10. I'll be completely real with you. It was going to be a 12 out of 10 if it wasn't for the double breaking of the binding vow. However, what do I think is going to happen next? I usually don't talk about this because I want to make my own video for it. But I think now that Yorozu straight up admitted that they do want to fight Sukuna, Sukuna having a massive cursed energy reading that should be able to be sensed and remembered by Yorozu, who hasn't had any gap or time loss or time disparity between the 1,000 years where they last fought Sukuna and now, and the fact that Yorozu just added the rule that people can freely move between the colonies, is going to go crazy. I think we're genuinely, and I've seen it everywhere too, so this isn't a theory of my own, I think we're going to see everyone appear to jump Sukuna. Like, Itadori, I'm afraid he's not going to be useful in the fight unless he suddenly... Because I think... Here, I'll talk about Itadori first. I think Itadori, now that he's free of Sukuna, blocking him off, I think he's now going to have Sukuna's curse technique. I know that seems strange, but I definitely think, in a very similar vein to the One for All thing, where One for All being passed on left All Might with the embers of One for All, I think Itadori will now have the remnants of Cleave, the remnants of the fire technique, the remnants of Dismantle. And I think that's how he's going to end up being relevant in this fight. He's going to be able to counter Sukuna directly. Like, with any of the Duranegging Cleaves or Dismantles, he's going to be the one fighting back using his tragedy as his strength. I think that's how it's going to work out for Itadori to be useful. And I do think everyone's going to show up. Obviously, Sukuna incarnating is going to cause a massive rift. Everyone knows where everyone is. Maki's right outside the barrier. Yuta, we haven't seen, and we don't know where he is. But now that the ability to move between colonies is free and set up, that's entirely possible for him to show up. Ryu Ishigori is still wandering around, the guy with the highest output of cursed energy. He could very easily show up wanting to fight Sukuna. Uro could show up wanting to help. Like, legitimately, every single character we've met could show up right here, right now. It's all been set up. We've all been alluded to these people getting allies, making members. And remember what Kashimo and Hikari's deal even is. Hikari let Kashimo fight Sukuna. That's their whole deal. So Kashimo's showing up. Now that Sukuna is incarnated, Sukuna's about to go nuts, Sukuna's about to go crazy, I could definitely see all of them showing up right here, right now, getting on a roll and going crazy. I think we're going to get the best battle ever. I legit think the jumping of Sukuna will be the most hyped thing I've ever seen, because we have a whole bunch of powerhouses who should be able to realistically do it. Sure, Sukuna is still extremely powerful, but even Yuta's built up to fight Sukuna. Like, Itadori believes that he could run the ones with them. We know Hikari is stronger than Yuta when on a roll. We know Kashimo's relative to the stronger Hikari. We know that Maki's right up there with Soul Splitter. I'm just hyped. I'm hyped. This chapter, I've never felt more invested. No, I have. Once again, same chapter in 4 nights. I was so invested to see what happens next. But this is the only other time where I feel like, yes, I'm itching. I'm fiending. Chapter 213, I'm so happy we're not on break next week. Poor rip to the Black Clover fans. But regardless, I'm super duper juper ooper gooper excited, and I can't wait. However, that's what I think. Please see what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below. In support for as low as $1 $1 month. Links to some videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off.